Hi, it's Ken here. And today we're going to be looking at one of the British newspapers and an article in it about Boris Johnson, you know, the UK Prime Minister. And it's just about a speech he gave. And we'll go through it and we'll bring out some great vocabulary and grammar structures, etc. It's always great to learn real kind of vocabulary in real time, in real examples, you know, and especially it's so important when you're learning is to learn in context of how all this vocabulary and grammar is put together. So we'll look through there. If this is your first time here, please give us a subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you like this, and we'll be able to share more of these videos. So let's have a quick look. We're going to be looking at the newspaper here. We'll just screen share at the moment. So this is from the Guardian Politics from the 22nd of November, which is today. And as I mentioned, it was the UK Prime Minister giving a speech to the CBI, which is the Confederation of British Industry, basically a collection of businessmen and industry leaders. They get together, and Boris Johnson was given a speech there. So let's have a look. The headline is up here and it says, "Embarrassing. Boris Johnson criticised for rambling speech." Now, what's a rambling speech? A rambling speech, if you're rambling, the verb to ramble is when you perhaps go for maybe a walk in no particular direction. So a rambling speech is when you speak, but you're not actually following any direction when you're speaking. You're going off on different angles from the speech. And for those listening, it can become, you know, be quite confusing, etc. So if somebody's rambling, they're talking and they're not giving any specific direction to their speaking or their speech. They are talking about everything and anything. It's not very focused. So let's have a look here. You'll see this word criticize here. This is the UK spelling, obviously. The American spelling is with a Z, C-I-Z, or Z if you're American. The PM, which is Prime Minister, extensively praised Peppa Pig World. Extensively means really kept, you know, they kept repeating the praise, etc. to Peppa Pig, which apparently is a kid's cartoon. And he imitated a car noise, which means he made the sound of a car when he was speaking. Quite bizarre. Anyway, let's have a look. Boris Johnson has been criticised by senior business leaders and Conservative MPs. A Conservative MP is just a political party in the United Kingdom, Conservative. An MP stands for Member of Parliament. So he has been criticised for a rambling speech, which means he's speaking not very focused and not very direct. And he was extensively praised. He compared himself to Moses, which is a person in the Christian Bible, and he imitated the noise of an accelerating car. When he was speaking, he did that kind of noise, you know, a car going quite fast. Accelerating means to go faster. The Prime Minister's sprawling address to the CBI here. An address is when you give a speech. I know address is perhaps the house where you live, right? But if you address someone, to address means that you give a speech to someone. Okay, so perhaps in this situation, he's standing up. You'll see it from the photo there. He's standing up and he's giving a speech to a lot of business leaders. So he's addressing the business leaders. Sprawling, it's a bit similar to the word rambling. Okay, so his sprawling address is very similar to rambling speech. Sprawling address would probably be more kind of formally spoken or a formal use, and rambling speech would be less formal. He was accused of was accused is the passive voice, obviously. The CBI accused him, the active voice. he was accused by the CBI, the passive voice. He was lacking seriousness and professionalism. Johnson lost his place during the speech. He lost his place, which means he was speaking and he forgot what he was saying. And he then spent 20 seconds repeating, "Forgive me," as he shuffled the paper at the podium. So essentially what's happened here is he was speaking and he forgot what he was saying, and he spent the next 20 seconds, all he said was, "Forgive me, I'm sorry," as he was trying to, to find where he was speaking, where he lost the place he was speaking. Some hoped the speech would be a chance for Johnson to announce proper policy in the pursuit of his levelling up agenda. In the pursuit of means they want this to happen, a levelling up agenda, whatever levelling up means, it's the topic of the agenda. However, the speech in South Shields in England only contained an announcement about changing building regulations. So they were hoping that the speech would have more information, but it only contained something about changing the regulations or the building regulations for new homes, the building laws and requirements for new homes. One of Johnson's lengthier tangents was about his recent trip to Hampshire's Peppa Pig world. His lengthier tangents, this is quite a formal vocab, and a tangent means that you're not going straight, you're talking, but then you start talking about something else. We would say you go off on a tangent, you go off from the main topic that you were talking about. So here he's meant to be talking about building regulations, etc., and then he goes off on a tangent and he starts talking about a cartoon, Peppa Pig world. So his lengthier tangent means he speaks about that more than what he was there to speak about, in which he opined an apparent dig at, an apparent dig means that if you dig someone or you have a dig at someone, it means that you criticize them. So here, during this talk about Peppa Pig, he gave his opinion and he criticized civil servants and the BBC. He criticized people who work in the government and also the BBC. He said that the true driver of growth is not the government, but the private sector, whose energy and originality the Prime Minister praised. To illustrate this, to demonstrate this, to show this, he explained, yesterday I went, as we all must, to Peppa Pig World. Hands up if you've been to Peppa Pig World. I loved it. It's very much my place. It has very safe streets, disciplines in schools, heavy emphasis, which means heavy emphasis means they focus really a lot on something. So here there was heavy emphasis on the mass transit system. Johnson explained that the real lesson he learned on the visit was the popularity of the character, who he said resembled a Picasso-like hairdryer, was evidence of blah, blah, blah. So Johnson said that the TV show was rejected by the BBC and now has been exported to 180 countries and now worth £6 billion. So essentially he's talking about this cartoon on his tangent, and then instead of talking about building regulations, he says that the private sector is more important than the government and more important than the BBC. And he gives this example here about the cartoon. The BBC rejected the cartoon, and then the cartoon was sold to other companies for about £6 billion. And he calls this pure genius. He calls this this situation very pure genius, which means that it's a very excellent business decision. Johnson also imitated the sound of an accelerating car with grunts. Bizarre. He compares himself with Moses. The Prime Minister said, I said to my officials, the new 10 commandments were, thou shalt develop industries in offshore. So what he's saying is he's talking about how the future for industry is in the natural resources of wind, hydrogen, which is using water-powered, nuclear power, and carbon capture. So when he's talking about it, he's talking about it in an historical sense, like the Bible, thou shalt. It's very, very old English. However, senior business figures and some Tory MPs were deeply unimpressed. Great use of vocabulary there, deeply unimpressed. Instead of saying very unimpressed, they've really emphasized this, and they've said deeply unimpressed. They were not impressed at all. One senior backbencher said it was a mess, while another told The Guardian, the newspaper, I thought today's performance was the most embarrassing by a Conservative Prime Minister, that's the political party, since last week's PMQs. PMQs is when it's called the Prime Minister questions, where members of the politicians will ask the Prime Minister questions in the Government House. Somebody needs to get a grip. To get a grip means to take control of a situation. So somebody needs to get a grip, somebody needs to control the situation. He's losing the confidence of the party, which means that the political party don't think he's doing a good job. Okay. Told The Guardian it was a failed speech. What he was talking about, he failed in what he was trying to do. It was a big opportunity after the absence of about levelling up in this month, but he said it was a flop, it was a ramble. If it's a flop, it means it was a failure. Okay, the event was a failure. It was a flop. So that's how we describe that. It was a ramble. He was talking lots of nonsense. It had no relevance at all, which again goes back to that part there. It had no relevance, which means that it wasn't on topic. Okay, it was a huge disappointment. Offered little to inspire confidence. Again, we want people to get inspiration. We want people to follow what he's talking about, but it offered little to inspire confidence. It didn't. The speech offered nothing for people to have confidence in his project. Where we're going, these reported primary speech. Two other business figures who watched the speech say they were surprised by his promotion. It was interesting that he asked a group of leaders in the Northeast if they had travelled 6 hours down the road, and then talking about levelling up. So what they're all doing here is they're all asking if what the Prime Minister was talking about was relevant to the situation he was in. Hogwash. This is a really, really old word, hogwash. And hogwash just means that something is, I guess, is not real. It's ridiculous. It is what you're talking about is nonsense. And here we go. He called it shambolic, which is nonsense. It was ridiculous. It's really good words, shambolic. No one was laughing because it wasn't funny. It was just crazy. It was ridiculous. It was shambolic. It was hogwash. And then they said, why? Because they needed things to be clear, but all they got was rambling. They wanted things to be clear, but he was rambling, which means that he wasn't being clear, he wasn't focused, he wasn't direct. So you can see there how rambling fits into the clarity. The Prime Minister, he said to have F business. After the speech, Johnson was asked if he was okay by the journalist. The Prime Minister defended, which means he said that his speech was good. He said his speech wasn't what everyone was saying. He said his speech was good. I think that people got the vast majority of the points, which means again, we're emphasizing. We could say, I think the people got the majority of the points, but if we say got the vast majority, which means nearly all. If you can imagine that majority is maybe more than 50%, the vast majority is maybe 80, 90%. Okay. and I thought it went over well, which means to go, if something went over well, it means that people understood it and they thought what they heard was excellent. So if something went over well, people understood what he was talking about. So that's a little bit of The Guardian, some of the vocabulary in the context of the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his speech to business leaders in the UK. So I hope you've got some really good vocabulary there that you can use. And if you like this, please subscribe to this channel and this video and give it a thumbs up. So I hope you enjoy it. And hopefully I will see you lovely people in the next video. Bye for now.